Hi everyone, I'm Tock Custom, and on this video we're going to be talking all about patterns, and that's going to be how to read and use patterns so that you can create pretty much anything. I'd like to thank Brother for sponsoring this video and this whole series, so thank you so much for watching. And we're going to jump into showing you what materials you'll need and how to read this pattern. Now, every time I make a pattern, I use all of these materials every single time. But the first thing is you'll need some kind of pattern making material. This is called easy pattern. It used to be called tracing cloths, but some kind of pattern making material. This is non-stretchy. You can iron it, you can draw on it, and it's semi-transparent, which you will need. Then you'll need some markers, hopefully something not permanent so it won't bleed through your pattern. Something to cut it out with, something to measure, and I use an envelope at the end so I can organize all my patterns. So for the pattern itself, typically you'll see a reference of all of the things that come within this envelope, and this comes with long sleeve, short sleeve, a vest, and a hat. So let's say we want to make a short sleeve shirt. So that is variation or style B. So that's what I want to make, so this is the pattern I want. Now it's really important that you pay attention to one thing here. So a lot of patterns come, and these look identical, in different sizes. So this comes with US size 34 to 42, that's chest size, and this comes with US size 44 to 52. Here's another example of my hoodie pattern. This comes with small, medium, and large. I've got the same exact pattern with XL, 2XL, 3XL. So make sure you figure out what do you want to make, does it have your style, and is it in your correct size for you or your customer. Now, once you've found the pattern and size that you want, we're going to flip this over and look at the back. Now, when I was brand new at sewing, this was all really intimidating, so we're going to break this down so it's really simple. So we need to remember that we're doing style B as our short sleeve shirt, right? Now, starting at the top left, it says men's knit top, vest, and hat. Suggested fabrics A and B. So anything that says B is what we're looking at. So it says stretch knits only, such as jersey, rib knit, interlock, etc. Everything else here is for the other projects, like the vest and the hat. So all we need is just a stretch knit fabric for the shirt. Anything that says notions is things like zippers, elastic, Velcro, and buttons. We don't have to worry about any of that. All we need is just fabric. The next thing we see are the sizes. So in US sizes, I am about a 42-inch chest, and I can kind of ignore the rest of this down here. So anyway, I'm looking at this column that says 42, and as we move down, we're looking at top B. So when I match up top B with 42, this tells me I need 1.5 yards of fabric to create this shirt. So when you're ordering fabric or you go to the fabric store, make sure that you get at least that much. I usually get an extra half yard or yard just in case I make any mistakes. So everything to the right is usually different languages. So we can just kind of pretend that doesn't exist, and then we can kind of pretend this bottom part doesn't exist. So this is all you really need to see, is just this top left corner right here. So now we can finally open this up and see what's inside. Now every pattern comes with two parts. You've got your instructions, and then you've got your actual patterns themselves. So first, let's take a look at our instructions, because this is another thing that was really intimidating to me, and we're gonna make it really simple. So this pattern has 2 pages. We're just gonna open it all the way up and lay it flat like this on our table. Again, when I was brand new, this was terrifying for me to look at because I had no idea what was going on. So we're gonna go section by section and show you just the things you're gonna need to get started if you're a beginner. So the first section is pretty simple. It just shows you all the things that come in this pattern. These down here are the backs of the items, so you can see what the back looks like. Now as we scoot over to our second section, this is gonna show us all of the different pattern pieces that come in the pattern of this paper right here. So to keep it simple, I know there's 15 different patterns here within the envelope, but all we have to do is cut out the ones for our t-shirt here. So our t-shirt is B. Now anything that says the letter B next to it, I'm gonna put a little dot next to. So front AB, back AB, sleeve AB, neckband AB. Now the rest is C, 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 C. I can skip that, skip everything. All we need is these 4 patterns right here, okay? All right, so now we're gonna move on to the general directions, and this is just like good stuff to know if you're reading patterns in general, but I'm just gonna point out the things that you'll need. So the first symbol is the grain line, and that helps you line up your pattern with the fabric the correct way. So it stretches the right way, and if you have a print or pattern, that it shows up the correct way on your fabric. The next symbol is our fold line, and it's two arrows pointing down at a line. So in a lot of cases when you're making something like a t-shirt, you're gonna lay fabric folded in half, and then you're gonna cut out your pattern, and when you open it, you're gonna get a mirror copy, so it's one solid piece of fabric that's the same on both sides. Now we're going to skip this and go right to notches. You'll often see these little single triangle, double triangle, or sometimes triple triangle. I will show you what those mean, but these are how you match up your panels of fabric so that everything sews together correctly. Dots are usually how you match up buttons or pockets on things. We won't need that for this. Cutting line is going to be pretty obvious once we get there. Now this is by far the most important part of this section, is where it says seam allowance, 5/8 of an inch. So every single stitch we do for this shirt is going to be at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance in order for this to fit correctly. Now it says unless otherwise stated is included but not printed on our multi-size patterns. So every pattern in this pack right here includes your seam allowances, so you don't have to worry about adding it. So again, remember, 5/8 seam allowance. So we're going to skip all of this for now. And then it says before cutting, pre-shrink fabric by pre-washing. So I do recommend pre-washing fabric for any garment or anything you're going to wear. Now we're going to skip the rest of this. We're going to skip all of this. We're going to skip all of this. And we're going to skip all of this. So really all you need to know is what direction you're cutting your fabric. Is it on a fold line? Does it have notches? What is your seam allowance? And pre-wash your fabric. So last is our cutting layouts, and I'm not a huge fan of this. Some people might like them, but you don't have to read this. Sometimes it might be helpful. So quick recap, we've got t-shirt B. I need 4 panels here. We're doing 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got our grain line, fold line, notches, dots, and our seam allowance figured out. I'm gonna pre-wash my fabric, and this is how I'm gonna cut it out on the fabric. And that's everything that you'll need to know. Now, I'm going to flip page number 1 over. Now, we can skip all this at the top because we're not interfacing anything and we're not adding lining, and we're going to go right to sewing directions. So it says top A and B. Obviously, we're doing top B. So anything that says B, we're going to do in this pattern. All right, now I'm getting way ahead of myself because I just realized we're not making the shirt in this video. We are making the pattern. So I'm going to unfold this all the way and see what we got. So I got this all the way open. These sheets are huge and they're very thin, so be careful not to, tear them or anything. I'm gonna try to smooth this out, and many patterns come with multiple sheets. So you can see there's 2 different sheets here. I'm gonna just do one at a time. We're gonna take the top sheet and lay it on the table. All right, now when I flatten this out, the first one I see is 13. We don't need that. We need 1, 2, 3, and 4. So here's panel number 1. So this is what you'll see with most patterns, and the first thing I'm going to point out is there's all these different lines here. Those are all your different sizes. I always get this question all the time from people. Why don't you just cut it out of the newspaper print and then use that as your pattern? You can do that, but say I want to make a small shirt for my friend, but then I want to make a large shirt for myself. I wouldn't be able to do that because I would have just destroyed the whole pattern by cutting it out of here. And that's why we use the pattern making material, so we can trace it onto here and replicate our pattern and then save it for later. So I'm gonna lay some of this material at the top of our pattern, and then we're gonna unroll this. And I'm gonna cut this below the bottom of the pattern. Now, this pattern making fabric comes folded in half, so you actually get twice as much as it seems. And now I can line this up with the edge. I know it's not perfectly transparent on camera, but I can see this super easily in real life here. Now I'm gonna use some pattern weights. What I'm gonna do is just place some heavy objects on my pattern fabric so that this won't shift or move around at all. And coffee works as a pattern weight too. Now, it might be kind of hard to see. I'm not going to zoom in, but all these different lines show you the different measurements. So it says 34 inch, 36, 38, 40, 42. We're doing the 42-inch t-shirt. So that's the outermost line throughout this entire pattern. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to freehand draw or trace along the 42-inch line right here. Sometimes it can be kind of tricky to see. Just do your best to be close. All right, so now we have our outline traced, and I want to look for some symbols. So first we're going to do our notches. So we've got a single triangle notch here, one on the armpit, one on the top of the side panel, and that's it for notches. And now, right here, this is very important. This is our fold line marking. So this is going to remind us to fold a piece of fabric in half and cut this out so it opens up as one solid piece. Typically there would be a grain line arrow. I don't think there is one because this is on the fold of a piece of fabric and you should fold it on the grain line, but I'll draw one on here just so you can see what it would normally look like. It's just a long straight line with an arrow pointing upwards if you've got patterned fabric. Anyway, I've got all my markings, and I always do this with every single piece, is I write the number of pattern it is, and then I'm just gonna write shirt B, and I'm gonna put L for large. You could also put the measurement number, but I'm just gonna call this a large shirt. And then I will write cut one on fold. So those are all the steps for transferring one panel onto your own pattern making fabric without destroying the original pattern, so I can make multiple patterns in different sizes. So now I'm going to go around the rest of these giant pattern pieces looking for the other patterns that I need. Sometimes they're on the other sheet, they're not in any particular order. Anyway, I found pattern number 2 right here. So anyway, I'm just going to do the rest of the patterns and then we will show you what we do once we've got them all traced out. Okay, so for the sleeve, there's something I want to point out because pattern 3 is for both the short and long sleeve. So you could probably see this big trapezoid here. I just want to do the short sleeve one. So there's a line that runs right down here, and I'm just going to transfer the short sleeve half of this to my pattern fabric. All right, now of course my last tiny panel number 4 is on the other sheet, so I'm gonna try to fold this up the way it came. If you can't fold this the way it came, don't worry, because no one can. It's absolutely impossible. But you just get it small enough and flat enough to fit in your envelope. Now for this last piece, it's saying 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So in the original part, it said 5/8 of an inch unless otherwise stated. So because this states something else, I'm gonna make a note of it and we'll see how it goes when we make the shirt. So I folded up my patterns as best I could, which is not great, but as long as they fit, that's all that matters. But for now, all we have to do is just take all the pattern pieces we traced and cut them out. Obviously, you can just use a pair of scissors, but if you do have a cutting mat and a rotary cutter, this will be so much faster. So I'm just gonna cut out all my patterns. All right, so our whole pattern is finished and this looks perfect. Don't forget the seam allowance is built into this, so you don't have to add anything to your pattern. If you're ready to start sewing, I would iron these flat, but in this case, I'm gonna show you how I prepare and organize all of my patterns. So I usually just lay them down in a row, something like this, and I'll just kind of fold them in half until they fit into one of these envelopes here. Now here's an old one I've done a long time ago, back in January of 2015. So this is my button-down shirt and dress shirt pattern, and this is how I label it. So I'm just gonna write t-shirt large. I suppose I'll write style B. I made this on May 31st, 2025. And that's pretty much all I need for this. So this is done, and anyway, I keep all of my patterns in a big filer, so if I ever want to make a dress shirt again, I can just pull this out and iron this flat, and then I'm going to be able to make a button-down shirt, or a dress shirt, or a pair of jeans, or a bag, or whatever. So this is how I organize all of my patterns. Now you can leave your instructions out if you want to make your shirt right away, but for storage, I always keep my instructions in the envelope. Because I have lost those before. And then I will often just put the pattern itself right in my new one so that it's always in there and I know where to find everything. So that is how I make a pattern, and that's how I keep a library of all of my patterns. So in the next video, we're actually going to make this t-shirt, which I believe will be the first garment in this new series of videos. Hopefully you learned something about pattern making and filing your patterns. Another big thanks to Brother for sponsoring this series. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video where we make this t-shirt.